Madison Square Garden, January 18th, 1971. For 2,803 days, this building was his kingdom. For 7 years, 8 months, and 1 day, it was filled with the deafening, earth-shaking roar of a single name. Bruno! 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 He wasn't just a champion. He was a real-life Superman to an entire generation, the living, breathing embodiment of the American dream, an invincible hero carved from granite and grit. But on this one night, the roar just died. It vanished. This is the story of the night the king was dethroned, leaving a record-breaking crowd in a stunned, funereal silence. To really get the silence, you have to understand the noise that came before it. You have to understand the empire that Bruno Sammartino built. On May 17, 1963, a 27-year-old Sammartino crushed the first-ever WWWF World Heavyweight Champion, Buddy Rogers, in a match that lasted a measly 48 seconds. And just like that, a legend was born, and the Worldwide Wrestling Federation was officially on the map. For the next 2,803 days, Bruno was the rock the entire company was built on. Back then, kayfabe, the illusion that wrestling was 100% real, was fiercely protected, and Bruno was as real as it got. He was the working-class hero, an Italian immigrant who had survived the horrors of Nazi occupation as a child and came to America to become the strongest man in the world. That story connected with people, especially the Italian-American communities in the Northeast, who saw themselves in his struggle and his success. Madison Square Garden? That became his palace. He sold out the arena a record number of times, creating a phenomenon wrestling had never seen. Night after night, fans jammed the rafters to see their hero defeat a seemingly endless line of bad guys. Monsters, giants, and rule breakers like Killer Kowalski, Gorilla Monsoon, and George the Animal Steel all came for his crown. And one by one, Bruno sent them all packing. His wins weren't just wins. They were proof that good triumphs over evil, that hard work was an unstoppable force. For almost 8 years, he was the one undeniable truth in pro wrestling. Bruno always wins. It honestly felt like his reign would go on forever. And that's precisely what made January 18th, 1971 so completely unthinkable. His opponent that night was Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear, a burly, 310-pound powerhouse billed from Soviet Russia. He was flanked by the loudmouth manager Captain Lou Albano. At the peak of the Cold War, Koloff was the perfect villain, a snarling, menacing brute who stood for everything American fans were taught to hate. But to Bruno's faithful, he was just the next guy in line, another challenger who was destined to fall. While Koloff was a credible wrestler, to many in the New York audience, he was, in his own words, pretty much an unknown. He'd faced Bruno before and always came up short, just like everybody else. The buzz before the match wasn't really about Koloff, it was about Bruno. Rumors were flying that the champ wasn't 100%, that he was nursing broken ribs from a recent fight with George the Animal Steel. Veteran wrestling journalist Bill Apter, who was there that night, remembers trying to get a word with Bruno before the match. He was turned away by Bruno's manager, Arnold Skoland, which never happened. It was a small sign that something was off. In total contrast, Koloff's manager Lou Albano was as loud as ever, snatching Apter's tape recorder and screaming that Koloff would humiliate Sammartino and all his fans. When the bell rang, the capacity crowd of over 21,000, a new attendance record at the time, settled in, expecting another routine, triumphant defense for their hero. The match itself wasn't some technical masterpiece. It was a slugfest, a brutal, gritty exchange of power between two absolute bulls. For nearly 15 minutes, they went back and forth, trading holds, punches, and body slams, with neither man getting a clear upper hand. As the match wore on, it was obvious this wasn't going to be an easy night for the champion. Still, nobody in that building truly believed the unthinkable could happen. They'd seen Bruno survive much worse against much scarier opponents. Then, it happened. In a moment that's now frozen in wrestling history, Sammartino charged at Koloff in the corner. The Russian Bear dodged and kicked the champion as he flew by. With Bruno dazed, Koloff saw his chance. He climbed to the top rope, a rare move for a man his size in that era, and leaped, driving his knee into the champion's chest. He went for the cover. The referee, Dick Kroll, hit the mat. 1. A murmur rippled through the crowd. 2. The murmur turned into a collective gasp. 3. The hands slapped the canvas for the third and final time. It was over. At 14 minutes and 55 seconds, Ivan Koloff had pinned Bruno Sammartino. And then, nothing. A split-second disbelieving roar immediately flatlined into an eerie, deafening silence. The sound of nearly 22,000 screaming fans just evaporated. Koloff himself later said, "I thought something happened to my ears. Can you imagine it? A sold-out garden. They couldn't believe Bruno got defeated after 7 years as champion." Bruno, sitting up in the ring, was so thrown by the quiet that he actually thought the knee drop had damaged his hearing. Journalist Bill Apter described it as a funeral. Fearing a riot, the referee quickly raised Koloff's hand but refused to present him with the championship belt in the ring. He urgently told Koloff to get to the back, where the title was handed to him away from the thousands of heartbroken spectators. An empire had fallen, and its subjects were left to mourn. As Bruno walked back to the dressing room, the silence was broken by the sounds of people openly weeping. He would later say, "People were crying and telling me how much they cared for me. That's what made me feel bad. I had made them feel so sad." For him, disappointing his fans was far worse than losing the championship. In fact, he was so physically and mentally drained from his punishing schedule that he was actually looking forward to the rest. So why did it happen? Why end a historic, money-making reign with a transitional champion? Well, the answer, as it so often is in wrestling, came down to business. The company had another hugely popular fan favorite ready to go, Pedro Morales. A match between two beloved heroes like Sammartino and Morales would have split the audience. So, the bookers needed a villain to be the bridge. Koloff was picked to be the hated heel who would take the belt from one hero and then lose it to the next. And it worked perfectly. Ivan Koloff's reign as WWWF champion lasted just 21 days. On February 8, 1971, in that very same arena, he was beaten by Pedro Morales in front of another sold-out, roaring crowd. The machine just kept on moving. But the legacy of that one night in January lives on. For Ivan Koloff, even with a short reign, it made him a top-tier villain for the rest of his career. He'd forever be known as the man who did the impossible. After decades of being seemingly overlooked by the company, Koloff was finally inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame's Legacy Wing in 2025, an honor many felt was long overdue. For Bruno Sammartino, the loss only made his legend bigger. It proved he was human, which made his eventual comeback and second multi-year title run feel even more incredible. But more than that, the end of his first reign gave wrestling one of its most powerful stories. It wasn't a story of victory, but of shock. It wasn't defined by a thunderous ovation, but by a profound, heartbreaking silence. It was the night a god fell from Olympus, and for a few brief moments, Madison Square Garden became the quietest place on Earth. What do you think is the most shocking moment in wrestling history? Was it this, the end of the streak, or something else? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into wrestling's most legendary stories, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The story of Bruno Sammartino and Ivan Koloff is a testament to the magic of professional wrestling. It shows how a hero is only as strong as the villain he has to conquer, and how sometimes the most unforgettable moments are the ones that leave us in stunned silence. It was a night that proved that even the most invincible champions can fall, creating a legend that has been passed down for generations. A story defined not by the roar of the crowd, but by the moment it completely disappeared. Thanks for watching.